Most nursing students I mentor default to using passive study strategies instead of active study strategies. Are you one of them? And often they're afraid to switch to the active learning strategies simply because they feel like it's going to take too much time and they don't have time to do that. You don't have time not to study with active study strategies. Here's why. There have been research studies that show that you retain more when you study using active learning strategies than when you study using passive learning strategies. And yes, while active learning strategies can feel messier, you might actually be able to cover less information than passive learning strategies. You're going to remember and understand so much more of what you learn that it's worth it come test time, even if you don't study every single possible fact that's on the test. Side note, in nursing school, it matters a little less that you study every single fact because you're actually being tested on how to think about those facts. So you better be practicing those skills of thinking in your study time as well. Let me prove to you that active learning strategies can be better than passive learning strategies. Let's say you have 100 pieces of information you are going to be tested on for your next exam. You use passive learning strategies and you cover every single one of those 100 facts. However, based on the research, you're probably only going to remember 5 to 20% of those facts that you studied with these passive methods. So at best, you're going to retain 20 pieces of that 100 pieces that you studied. Not a very good return on your investment of time. Now let's say with active learning strategies, you only get a chance to study 40 of the 100 facts. Well, research shows that you're more likely to remember 75 to 90% of what you study using active learning strategies. So let's say at its worst, you remember 75% of that 40 facts that you studied. That means you're going to remember at least 30 of the facts for your test. And I hope you're paying attention because that is 10 more than you would retain if you were using the passive strategies, even if you studied everything with those passive strategies. Now, the way you're being tested definitely makes a difference. Because in nursing school, remember, you're not being tested on just what to know, you're being tested on how to think about what you know. So it's not even going to matter as much that you didn't cover every single fact for your test, because when you use those active learning strategies to study just the 40% even, you're developing those critical thinking skills and learning how to apply it to the nursing information. This means that come test time, even if there's a question that you really don't know anything about because you didn't specifically study it, and this will happen to you no matter how much you study. Now you have the critical thinking strategies, the thought process. You've practiced thinking like a nurse in your active study time so that you have the skills necessary to understand what the question's really asking you. This allows you to develop your educated guess, and you're much more likely to get the question correct, even if you didn't memorize that specific fact from the textbook. Because sometimes that answer actually isn't even in the textbook. You have to think through it critically. And that's why active learning strategies are better than passive. Want me to give some examples of passive learning strategies versus active learning strategies? Follow for more.